So, finally, what are the signs of toxic support in this final part of the three-part video? Deception is one of the biggest signs of toxic support. And the kind of deception I am referring to is when you end up with this idea that something is available to you when it actually isn't, or at least not in the way that is authentic and strengthening. So when you have people around you who you believe have your back, even when they actually don't, it creates a cloud of deception which can make it very hard to tell or see the truth. And it can end up creating a sense of false comfort. Now, I've talked about omens in some of my videos about my shamanic work. And in my experience, I found omens come to me in many forms. And in this case, I had a string of omens which involved lapsing support structures, which now when I look back and realize was the universe trying to warn me about this false sense of comfort that I had. And I remember the first structure that fell apart. It happened at a time when my business was in a very precarious position and not doing very well. And I had purchased this camping bed, which I thought would be great, on a little terrace that I had. And I wanted to sun myself on it, and I was lounging on it one afternoon, and it suddenly gave way. And it was actually quite funny because it collapsed with me in the center, and I went right through this sunbed and got stuck there and couldn't get out. I can't stop laughing about it even now when I think about it. It's really funny, but the symbolism behind it wasn't very funny though. It was actually quite sad because a few weeks later, my mentor suddenly passed away. And that was the beginning of a series of collapses where I started to notice that I end up in situations where structures were collapsing, and it was symbolic of the false comfort I had. And there were other structures that collapsed like this in the same way and were followed then by either the loss of a particular support system or a revelation of the way I had been deceived about what that support system was actually about. The second sign of toxic support is the exploitation. And this is when you are more invested in the relationship than the other person. And you do a reverse projection. So you know how narcissists would project their crap onto you? This is the opposite, where you project your positive traits and positive ideas about the relationship onto the narcissist or the person who's exploiting you, thinking that the relationship is based on mutual give and take and sharing and caring, when actually it's exploitative and you are usually in a one down position. And when you have this kind of support, it leads you to chasing false promises. The classic carrot on a stick kind of a situation, because you have been given or have been fooled into believing that the relationship is on equal terms. And you know you do something for that person, and then they are to do something back for you. It's all mutual. And when the reality is that they are more happy to take all of your labor, whether it be emotional, physical, psychological, etc., but want to actually give back nothing or very little in return. And in this case, when you don't recognize that, and you can't see that this relationship is far more, that this relationship is far less supportive than it actually is. And that's because a lot of abusive people who are exploitative tend to also be future fakers. They tend to dangle this carrot in front of you like, oh, you know, this is the milestone and you're going to get this, when it's not even true. So I had this happen to me with someone I thought was a mentor and had promised me that he was going to invest in my startup. And I was really excited to think I had this support and went full speed ahead. and started my business. And to my horror, I found out after I'd already signed a lease on a business property that I could not get out of, and I had rented for this purpose, that this person just disappeared and stopped taking my calls. And I had no choice but to raise funds myself practically overnight, because there were some legal requirements on the rental agreement and I couldn't get out of it, and I had no choice but to proceed without my investor. It was really shocking and disheartening for me, but looking back, I now realize that this person wasn't even as invested in our relationship as I was. And even though he had walked out on me like that, we did eventually get in touch again, because I genuinely believed that he had a good reason for disappearing and on me. And it took me years to realize that it was just an exploitative relationship that I had mistaken for a support system. The third sign of toxic support is strings attached, and it is support that is given to you in a very conditional way that comes at a very heavy cost. I have a story to share here, which is a good example of this, a very sad story. I went through a period in my life where I was homeless and was moving from guest house to guest house, staying with friends. And a family member said to me, "Hey, you know what? Why don't you stay at this family apartment?" And I was really happy that they had thought about me, because I was like, wow, really desperate at that time. So I took up the offer and I moved into that apartment, only to find out that this person had not told me the real reason that they had given me the apartment. And the real reason, which was then revealed, was they were expecting me to run an Airbnb for them out of one of the rooms and share those funds with this person. Had I known that this is what was expected of me, I wouldn't have taken the apartment in the first place, because at that point of my life, I was badly burnt out and very traumatized. I already suffer from complex PTSD, and I had undergone terrible re-traumatization from losing my business after being being evicted from my home. And I really just needed time alone to collect myself and get back on my feet. So I was really shocked when this was thrown my way, and I was not comfortable with it at all. And I tried to explain to the family member how doing this would not be something I would feel comfortable handling right now, and that I wouldn't be very it wouldn't be very good for my mental health. But they were adamant, and it was too late for me to move out. So I had nowhere to go, and this person knew that. And so that was a string that was created when I had no way to get out of that situation, at least not quickly. So I went ahead. I had no choice but to go ahead with this B&B thing, and this girl moves in who I wasn't too happy about, because she had been recruited from an online advertisement. Even though I had warned the family member that there were no reference checks or background checks on this particular website, she moved in anyway, and guess what? Turns out she was a squatter. And the situation went from bad to worse, because she became really abusive, and I had no choice but to finally involve law enforcement to get her out of the apartment. If I hadn't done that, that family apartment we would have lost that apartment. And this turned into a complete nightmare for everyone involved. And it also left me further traumatized and impacted my health, which was already going down the drain. And as angry as I was with this family member, they, of course, and this was a highly narcissistic family member, were oblivious to what I was going through and were not bothered at all. In fact, another family member who was also involved in this started accusing me of trying to make money behind their back by running a guest house in the apartment. And I was shocked, because I was like, wait a minute, I didn't want anyone in the apartment. It was your idea to have somebody move in, and you're the one who pushed me to do it. And now you're accusing me of trying to make money behind your back? It was entirely ridiculous. So, to conclude, these are my thoughts on toxic support. I would love to hear your own experiences with this. And till then, I look forward to see you next time. Thank you for watching.